Hi everyone and welcome back to Amplify. I am recording this video at a very early hour here in Belgium and it's extreme heat, so I might not be looking my best, but I had to share it as soon as possible because our next guest makes remarkable changes in the world. He leads a community which connects artists with people with mental health issues. As usual, at the end of the episode, we're gonna have a soundtrack, but now, without further ado, let's talk to Stu from the Noisy Brain. Good morning is here, so it's what is it, like four at your side now?
It's coming up for 3:30.
3:30.
Yeah.
Well, good morning to you from Brussels, from Belgium.
Good morning to you in Brussels from Singapore's afternoon.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock, 30 minutes here, 8:30, and I just had my first cup of coffee, and hopefully that will wake me up.
My tea.
Yeah. So, Stu, welcome to Amplify. I wanted to talk to you because in a couple of weeks ago, I had Billy Crabb, and he told me about the project you're having, which is called the Noisy Brain.
A new kind of community called Noisy Brain, and what they're doing is they're taking writings from people who have mental health issues, are struggling, and they write poems, and you take the poem and you write music all.
And this is something interesting, so I thought sharing a bit with our people, with our listeners and viewers about what is it Noisy Brainer, but also the project is interesting to me personally. So I wanted to know a bit more about you, like where did you grow up, where are you from?
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me, Eric, or thanks for inviting us. I come from a place called Folkestone, which is down in southeast of Kent in England. And yeah, it's about 50 miles south of London. I lived there up until moving to college. Like I ended up going to art college and studying graphic design and advertising, and yeah, I pretty much lived and worked in England and mainly London up until around about 2002 when I escaped. I escaped London. Um, I used to work in an advertising agency called Saatchi & Saatchi, and I worked there for probably around about 8 years. I'd always wanted to travel. I'd always wanted to get out of the UK, and so I left in 2000. I think it was 2001 or 2002, so it's almost 20 years ago. But I did sort of a round the world trip, but I never had any intention of coming back. But I didn't tell anybody that.
Oh wow, okay.
I just thought I would try my luck and work in different places. So I ended up working in Australia for about 3.5, 4 years. And then I came and was asked to work in Singapore, and I worked here for about another 6 years, and then left the company in Singapore and worked in Vietnam, South Korea, and then I'm now back in Singapore, and I'm no longer working in advertising.
Stu, I have a question, but when you started traveling, how did you find all those jobs? I mean, you were going from, well, okay, let's first go with the first point. What was the first place you left for from the UK?
When I left the UK, I actually sort of had booked an around the world trip. It was supposed to be for 6 months, but as I said, I didn't really ever plan on coming back, going back.
So you really visited a lot of countries?
Yeah, originally went to Hong Kong just for a couple of weeks, and I had arranged some interviews there with advertising agencies. But as soon as I touched down in Hong Kong and I saw all the big skylines, I just thought, I don't want to live in this city. So I cancelled all my meetings. I never went to any of the interviews in Hong Kong. And then I spent a little time in Thailand, and then I did the backpacking trail, like so Hong Kong, Thailand, Singapore, and then Australia and New Zealand. And I then settled down in Australia. Somebody offered me a sort of like a longer contract down there in another agency, and I stayed there for about 3.5 years. So it was eye-opening. It was great to be able to work in so many different countries in advertising. I mean, my currency is, I suppose, coming up with ideas. So I was lucky in all those countries to start with that they were English speaking. So and I was able to sort of still come up with ideas in different countries. When you move into markets like Vietnam and South Korea, it's completely different. I used to try and get a bit of humor into my ideas, and so I had a reasonably humorous showreel when I worked in the UK. But obviously the humor doesn't translate, So when you go to other markets in Asia, you have to simplify everything, and so it's a challenge to work there. But it was great.
I can imagine they are watching the British one saying, "Get me the hell out of here." And how old were you when you booked the trip?
I must have been 30. Yeah. It was 29, 30. Yeah.
So let's go to the point where you said you are not working in advertisement anymore.
A little bit of background about myself. I've always struggled on and off with depression and sometimes forms of anxiety and things like this, but mainly with depression and sort of just lethargy and not being able to sort of have any energy to do things. And the most recent bouts of depression that I had was about about 3 years ago. It sort of probably started, but when you're depressed, you obviously, a lot of people can't talk about it, and it's kind of a weird thing. And it's sort of I found myself self-medicating, so drinking a lot of alcohol and getting myself into more and more trouble, and basically purely for the fact that I wasn't able to talk about it. And so you feel very isolated, very lonely, and getting drunk, you try and forget things, and it didn't help, obviously. And I started getting into lots of arguments with people, arguing with my family, with my wife, and then when I was in various bars and things, I would start arguing with strangers, and obviously it's not a healthy way to be. And now looking back on it, I know I should have been seeking help rather than just hiding from the situation. So a couple of years ago, one of these incidents escalated, and I got myself into a bit of trouble in Singapore. And the incident was filmed, and it went onto social media, and instantly sort of blew up in Singapore. I was getting death threats. I was getting people sending letters to my house, like threatening me, and online and social. So I basically had to go into my own, which was my fault, but I had to go into my own isolation and self-imposed lockdown. So I've had a bit of preparation for what was going on at the moment with everybody. But yeah, it was a nasty time for my family and my friends, and you know, thankfully I was lucky because I had such a good, strong support network of, you know, my wife was fantastic. My family were very supportive, and also my friends, and they all helped me through this situation. And I went through court cases for like six to 8 months, and ended up spending a week in Changi prison, which, you know, is not a pleasant experience. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. But it sort of was a time that I was able to reset myself, my mind, and I actually sort of look back on that time as I was lucky that it wasn't as any more serious, because during those times of depression I was having suicidal thoughts. I would see opportunities for suicide quite regularly, and it's very hard to describe. You can be watching a film, for instance, and you could see a bridge in the film, and instantly, rather than watching the film, you're focusing on the bridge and saying, maybe that's the best place to do it. And it was kind of really, you know, unnerving, because it takes you out of your reality into this moment that you genuinely have no control over these thoughts. And it was something that I couldn't control, and thankfully it only ended up with me going to prison, and you know, but yeah, as I say, it was an opportunity after that to sort of reset myself, and I started having this kind of creative, like, urge to write. And I genuinely didn't know what I was writing or why I was writing. I've always, in my previous job in advertising, I used to write scripts for TV commercials and short films and things like that, and so I'm able to write ideas. But this was kind of different. I was writing all the time, and I've got notepads. I've always got a notepad next to me, but and it was just filling up with lots of angst and uncomfortable anger and frustrations. And I started sort of building some of these frustrations into bad poetry. And as I say, I didn't have any focus on these things. At the same time, I was going for different counselling to try and get my head straight and work out ways of clearing my mind and focusing myself on sort of more positive things. And one of the guys that I was seeing, he happened to be late to a meeting that we were having, and he'd been through a lot of things with alcohol and things like that before, and he was helping me. And he turned up late to a meeting, and I had my notepad. And so he sat down, and he was interested in what I was writing, and he asked me what I'm writing, and I said, I don't know. And he said, did I mind if he read what I was scribbling? And he got really animated and excited when he read some of this, and he asked me if he could take a photo of it, and if I minded if he tried to make it into a song. And I was like, yeah, kind of do what you want. I mean, I'd not really thought. I thought they may be songs, but I'm not a songwriter and I'm not musical. You know, I've always loved music, but I'm not musical. And he went away, and about 2 months later, after the prison sentence, and I received an email from him. Sorry, a text message from him, and he said, "Oh, I've finished your song." And then the next text message turned up, and it was this song. And it was a very, very emotional moment to hear your words played back to you in a song. And it just felt so good that somebody cared about what I'd written and could relate to it. As I say, it was very emotional to hear all of that back. And so I almost immediately just thought, I can't be the only person that writes, and I also can't be the only person that's not musical. And suddenly I was like, I want to share this process and experience with more people. I completely understand that it doesn't cure people, and it doesn't, isn't an answer, but it's also very therapeutic as an outlet to keep writing. I mean, I found it very therapeutic just writing all the time, even though I didn't know what it was. When I've talked to more people and I've sort of started the project, more and more people have started sort of saying how much they appreciate the advice and encouragement to write. And so from all that experience and that incident of the song being sent to me, the project, the Noisy Brain project, has been born. I think it was about a year ago, because I've sort of always been ideas person. As an ideas person, I'm not very good. So setting up a business, and setting up a project. And I had a chance meeting with one of my wife's friends in a bar in London just over a year ago, and she knew about the incident that had happened and was asking me about that, and she said, "What do you want to do?" And I said I had this idea. From that one conversation, from the next day, she just basically said, "Well, let's make it happen." And so I've got a lot of sort of thanks and appreciation for her motivation, because otherwise I still I wouldn't be talking to you today. And I would probably still be telling people, "Oh, I might be doing something with this idea." But she galvanized me, and we've got to where we are. We've still got a long, long way to go, but we're in a good place now. I mean, what the Noisy Brain does, as a basic structure, is we embrace and encourage people with mental and emotional health issues. And we encourage them to write about their feelings, about their experiences, or about past experiences. And some of the people that send us writings are not, sometimes they don't suffer from these conditions themselves, but they may have like a family member or a friend, or they even may be sort of like, sometimes they're carers, they're actually looking after them, and they see the frustrations in people, and so they've written about that as well. We're reaching out to sort of all of those people, but then we're creating sort of like a library or a list of writings, and then when interested musicians approach us, we give them the booklet of writings, or some of the writings, and if they feel inspired by something, they start creating music. And currently we've got around about 20 pieces of music being made around the world. There's a fantastic young musician in Romania who's like making 2 or 3, and I'm talking to people in America, the UK, and then a couple of people in Singapore are doing it. It's grown it's growing. I wouldn't say quickly, but it's growing with a good steady momentum, and it's very exciting. We've set it up as a social enterprise. So the idea being that any money that we do make goes back into the system to help promote mental health and music projects. We also, part of the subscription, we've actually just launched the Noisy Brain community app, which is available to download, but it's part of the subscription of that. It helps us fund, like, it eventually will help us fund online therapy courses for people, you know, suffering, who can't afford, you know, we might be able to subsidize their sessions or pay for them depending on their situation. We sort of also want to sort of fund various like media campaigns and to promote mental health issues. On the other hand, we also want to help up and coming musicians that, you know, they may help us out with creating the songs, so we want to pay them back and help promote them, potentially offer them opportunities with live gigs if we're ever allowed them again. And, you know, various other events. So we want the whole community to be helping each other, and that's really the Noisy Brain. I mean, that we have so many different plans, and we've got a lot of interesting talks with various organizations around the world which are keen to sort of collaborate with us ongoing, which is great. But all these things take so long to set up, you know, and especially like we're having this conversation now with a 8-hour time difference. But so these projects, they're gradually coming together, but we don't know when. And, you know, COVID hasn't helped, but.
Well, Stu, there was a lot of information, but there was one golden point which I really loved that you mentioned, is about encouraging the friends of yours and people around to take the chance and work on what they want to do. So I think we can all relate to this. I mean, what was the name of the friend of your wife?
Fran, yeah, she's my
Fran.
Partner on this project. Yeah, she's been fantastic. She's more business focused, and I'm sort of talking to artists and musicians, like.
So everybody who is watching or listening right now, be more like Fran.
Yeah, she's been fantastic to sort of get us up and running. Yeah, she's a lot more organized than I am. I don't have that business brain. I have a noisy brain.
Yeah. Stu, and what about the application itself? Because it's available as an application, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Was it difficult to launch it? Do you need to contact some very special developers?
Again, there are various developers that sort of kind of rent you like the skeleton of an app. We've had to sort of design the look and the feel of it ourselves, which is another reason it took a long time, because my computer skills are awful, and so everything took twice as long as it probably should do. But I think it's in a reasonably good place now. I mean, at least everybody can understand the idea from the app now. I'm sure it's going to sort of take on a life of itself, and you know, we're always talking to different artists and designers, and like people are keen to sort of help us out with things. So I think the app will continue to evolve, and I mean, who knows? Like the idea might evolve into something completely unrecognizable, but this is where we are at the moment. Yeah.
And what about the next step, 2021? What's your plan?
Yeah, well, obviously, initially, I think always with these things, especially, you know, you need to build the community to, you know, to be able to help other people. You need to sort of create a community. So that's really been what we've been doing and concentrating on in the last sort of like, I think we only really started posting things on Instagram. On Instagram, we're available at the Noisy Brainer. Somebody had already stolen the Noisy Brain, so we had to become the Noisy Brainer. We only started posting things, I think, in October. And it's been gradually, the community's been gradually building. In the near future, like, which is always going to be a continuing process, is to build the community, build the following, and encourage supporters. You know, we also want to intentions to create a lot more like awareness for mental health issues by creating more content which is mental and emotional health issues and music focused. So we're in talks with, as I said, we've talked with a few organisations at the moment, but one of the, I can't really talk about who it is at the moment, but one of the ideas is to create like a documentary, maybe a film or maybe even a series, and create like a documentary on like the journey of some of these songs. So we are able to then create some communication about the mental health issue and the backstory about why the writing originated. And also then the coming together and the collaboration of two strangers, like, and on some occasions at the moment we're working, and I'm kind of introducing these two people, and then we sort of like have an introductory chat, and then they go away, and then I leave them to make the music, and they start collaborating amongst themselves, which I think is great. It's not my project then, it's like it's their project. And you know, then, you know, a few months later they come back and they say, well, we think we've got something to play, you know, like, and so that's another interesting process. It's like hearing their music for the first time. And again, I don't get involved, and myself and Fran and the Noisy Brain don't get involved with directing which direction the music should go in, or the genre, or anything like that. That is completely up to the musician. And we also advise the guys that submit the writings not to request the genre of music. Once a musician's involved and if he's inspired, I think it's only fair and only right that the musician does what he wants, you know, what he's comfortable, or they are comfortable. You know, we have bands, we have individuals, you know, there's no set genre for the Noisy Brain. It's really just that process of creating a song from a writing from somebody that's struggled, you know, or struggling. We've got a lot of other things happening, and we're quite surprised. We've been sort of approached by different companies around the world, and it's really just chasing all of these things up. And at the moment, it's only myself and Fran, so there's a lot to do for just two of us. But yeah, we're enjoying it. It's exciting, you know.
Stu, is it the only thing you do right now, the project of the Noisy Brain, or you have some other side activities, side jobs?
No, I'm concentrated pretty much full time on the Noisy Brain. Another thing I learned from my experiences with depression and realizing that I needed to take care of myself a little bit more, and I've kind of gone after leaving my job in advertising, I've kind of gone completely back to basics. I found that I wanted to go walking a lot and even gardening. I love to go and potter around in the garden. We're lucky enough to have a small garden here. I find that I'm better off without a set routine. And I think some of it is to do with, I recently wrote an article for the app, which was ADHD and me. Because when I started in counselling a couple of years ago, when the major incident happened, one of the first things that the counselling guy said to me was, Stuart, have you ever been diagnosed with ADHD?
Thank you very much for streaming the first part of the episode with Stuart from the Noisy Brain. Don't mind what's behind me, it's just a plan for the week. And as I promised, at the end of every episode we're gonna have a soundtrack. So today you're gonna enjoy a futuristic synth pop track called Lit by Stars from a Leipzig-based artist, Jack Enox. So enjoy!
Flashing lights fill the streets, all around the silver screens. Human lives now digitized, so we live in a better life. Future's brighter every day. It has never been that way. Illusions free, so we're riding high. So fresh on our minds. In a shining city, lit by the stars. Neon lights on all the cars. Chasing danger just to feel alive. We'll do anything to be satisfied. Troubled streets everywhere we go. On our way until the roads will close. We're all just feeling fantastic in a city with hopeful dreams. Hopeful dreams. Our whole lives on video. Memories captured before you even know. Artificial intelligence will let us go.